Right then, we should be live now. I think the timer is moving. Probably haven't got anyone watching us yet, but hopefully we'll get a couple of people over the course of the chat. So here with Adam Watts. I know him from way back from his bands that he used to be in, but since then he's been writing horror books, horror stories. So do you want to introduce yourself slightly to start off with?
Oh, yeah, that's me. That's
yeah.
Me. My bit to talk, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. So I'm Adam Watts. I'm a horror author from the UK. Let me have a think. I don't even remember when I started doing it. A long time ago, I just decided I was going to start writing. Had a bit of an idea, sat there in my brain for a few years, and now I thought, right, it's time to get that down on paper. So thought I'd probably try and have a go at writing a short story. And then it sort of turned into a whole bloody novel. And so I quite enjoyed doing that. So I wrote some more novels and I wrote some more short stories, and it just went from there, really. Yeah.
That's cool. Because so you started off, it was Cheesecake Warriors was your band, wasn't it? And then it was Beef Conspiracy.
Yeah.
But they were like death metal grind, but like lots of like humor, like not taking themselves seriously. No, like a lot of horror death metal bands will be all about horror movies, but you never really had any horror aspect to your lyrics, from what I recall. So how did it go from being like jokey? Did you write any lyrics for the old band? Going from like sausage comas and bloody well, I can't remember that. Nothing says I love you like a chainsaw injury to the face and stuff like that. How did you go from that kind of silly, humory stuff to writing about horror?
I didn't really write a lot of the lyrics for Beef Conspiracy when we were younger. So when we were all in school and when we were in college, and we were called Cheesecake Warriors. I think I used to write a few of the lyrics for that, but then Greg started taking over with the lyrics when he started doing vocals. So he was, I think he was always a bit more keen on doing the gore and all of that through his lyrics. So I think a lot of our lyrics were inspired by horror films. I think, you know, we all watch a lot of horror films. We all love horror films. We all love like stupid gory films like Evil Dead and Brain Dead, all that sort of crazy stuff. So a lot of our lyrics were inspired by horror films and a lot of our imagery, but we just I don't know, we always like to amuse ourselves sort of first and foremost. So generally speaking, if we'd been sat around just sort of talking about what we want to do and something made us laugh, then we would put that in there.
Yeah.
That's all we were really interested in doing, I think, was making each other laugh. And I think because we grew up in the middle of nowhere in Norfolk, I think the things that make us laugh probably don't make a lot of sense to anyone else. So we just sort of developed this sort of bizarre brand of meat-based humour. We sort of channel through our music. I don't know how it went down within the death metal community. I think we were. I like to think now that we were precursors to, you know, the party grind scene.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, I mean, I don't think we were all that different to bands like Gore Rotted in terms of the themes we were using, in terms of the kind of imagery, in terms of the kind of lyrics and stuff. We were just a bit more, a bit less sort of palatable.
A bit more tongue in cheek, but yeah.
Yeah, kind of self-sabotaging, I think, is what we mainly were. I still can't decide whether we underachieved or overachieved, but there you go.
So when it comes to actually writing stories, writing horror or fiction at all, when did that start for you? I mean, did you used to write as a kid? Was there anything you used to do that at school? Was there you got a history of that, or did it just pop into your head one day?
I always liked writing, so I don't think there's ever a point I can remember where I didn't like writing. If we were in school, I used to like to write stories. I used to like to come up with stuff. I think all of us, like particularly in the band, we used to sort of like always be bouncing stupid ideas around each other, making films, you know, doing all sorts of stuff like that. So writing and coming up with ideas was always there. I think it was always sort of, you know, part of. I know there was always that thread running through things, but yeah, I always wanted to write a film.
Yeah.
I did media studies when I was at college, and I was kind of hoping we might get to sort of write some films and scripts during that. And I think it was always my intention to do that. But then I just kind of, if I'm honest, it just seemed like a lot of work, to write a script and to kind of have to pitch it and get all these other people involved. And I just got to a point where I thought I could just write that as something else. I could at least just get it out of my head and see how it goes. I don't really. It's funny, but looking back, I don't remember really sort of what I was thinking, because I'd never written like fiction before. And I just thought, well, I might as well just give it a go. And if it's crap, then it's crap. And at least it's out of my head and I've scratched that itch. And to be fair, it might still be crap, but I enjoyed doing it. That was the main thing. I just enjoyed writing just for me, really. It was just, it was something to do, I think, while music was starting to take a bit of a back seat. So, yeah. Yeah.
Why horror? Why was horror the genre that you went for? Because you're just a fan of movies, or why not romance? I could see you as a romance writer.
Why not romance? I don't know if I'm capable of writing that sort of stuff. I think there's been a few times where I've tried to write things that weren't horror, but it always ends up just being horrible anyway. So I just think I might as well just embrace it.
Yeah.
I like horror films. I like anything that's a bit sort of dark and twisted and horrible and nasty. But strangely, until recently, I've not really read a lot of horror. So I think the only horror author I ever really read was Richard Lehman.
Right.
So I've still only ever read a couple of Stephen King books. I don't really. It was never really my thing, horror fiction. I always liked stuff with a bit more of a satirical edge to it. I always liked things like Chuck Palahniuk and Bret Easton Ellis, those kinds of things. So they kind of had that violent, visceral horror element to them, but they're also saying something about the world, and that's what always appealed to me a bit more. But yeah, I think the reason I write horror is just because I love horror.
Yeah.
I love watching horror films. I think pretty much everything that I really enjoy has some kind of horror theme to it, whether it be music or whether it be sort of film or TV. And I think now, because I sort of found myself being a horror writer, I'm reading more and more horror as well. So, authors like Paul Tremblay, he's particularly good. Yeah.
Okay. So, what about influences on your writing? You never read an awful lot of people. Would you say like Bret Easton Ellis was the biggest influence? I thought it was kind of like, bits of American Psycho, like in the style to your books. Actually, this is the interview where I've actually read your books. I've actually read 2 of your books. In the last I've not actually got around to reading their books yet. I've actually read 2. That was back when I was still reading. I wasn't being a lazy bastard. But what other influences would you say you've had on your writing?
I think initially it was writers like Bret Easton Ellis, so particularly American Psycho. It was writers like Chuck Palahniuk. So when I read Haunted and Fight Club and Lullaby, all of those, the themes that were in those books, the kind of ideas he was playing with really appealed to me. And I think even sitting down and reading stuff like 1984, actually that's a horror story. That's a proper horror story. It's wearing different clothes. So books like that just made me think that actually horror didn't have to be, just men walking around in forests, murdering teenagers, sort of ghosts jumping out of their cupboards and whatnot. So yeah, aside from those 2, I still don't really know who influences me as a writer. I think because I try and read quite broadly now. I try and read, lots of different genres, lots of different kinds of books, and I suppose I just try and nick bits and bobs from here and there. But when I'm writing short fiction in particular, it tends to be a bit like writing sketches. it makes me think of stuff like League of Gentlemen and Psychoville, those kind of quite dark, twisted little skits that they do. Thinking about that kind of thing.
Cool. Someone was asking, how can someone in the US get a signed copy of your book? Would Big Cartel be the best place to? Can they all, like, if they go to Big Cartel, can I ask you, can you sign it, please, or something like that? If they go there,
yeah. All I will say about Big Cartel is, I think with Mr. Bloody Sunshine, I think I've actually only got one copy left anyway. Right. So if anyone orders Mr. Bloody Sunshine through Big Cartel, that will be the very last paperback copy of that book. So yeah. But generally speaking, whenever anyone orders anything through Big Cartel, I do tend to sign it just because.
That's cool.
Just because I want to. It makes me feel like a proper writer rather than just mucking about on his kitchen table.
Talking about horror more generally and broadly, what do you remember your first horror memory? Like first time watching a horror movie, or first time you were scared by some horror fiction or movie or anything like that?
Yeah, I used to hate horror. It used to scare the shit out of me when I was a kid. I couldn't bear it. I think I was about 14, 15 by the time I could actually stand to sort of watch it and enjoy it. Mm-hmm. The first horror I remember watching was American Werewolf in London. So my brother had pestered my dad. We didn't have Blockbusters. We had something called Titles in Norfolk. So yeah, Titles Video. We were in there, and he was pestering him for American Werewolf in London, and he reluctantly let us have it. I think I was about 7 at the time, and we got to the point where the werewolf stormtroopers burst into the home and cut somebody's neck. And my mum walked in and was just sort of like, "What is this? Get this off!" So that was quite an introduction to horror. That scared me pretty roundly. London did, and then it was just catching bits and bobs of Nightmare on Elm Street, and that scared the shit out of me and gave me nightmares. And then I wouldn't watch anything again. And then I remember going to my mate's 13th birthday sleepover. So that's the singer from Beef Conspiracy, and he got out Creepshow for that. And like they put it on, and I just refused to watch it, and they just ripped it out of me until the point where I agreed to watch it, and I quite enjoyed that, but it still scared the shit out of me.
Right.
The horror film I remember really enjoying was Evil Dead.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Got a question in the chat. Someone called Tom Grind Ethic. He says, "How does
that?" I don't know idea who that is.
He sounds like a wrong one. He says, "How do you get your beard to grow so thick?"
He sounds awful.
He does, doesn't he? Right, let's go on then. So the first book then, you said you had an idea in your head and you started off in your head as a short story, somehow got blossomed into a full-length novel kind of thing. That is Mr. Bloody Sunshine, isn't it? So where did the idea come from? What and how did it grow to the big book it is now?
So Mr. Bloody Sunshine is about a pizza delivery driver who kind of gradually goes nuts and starts murdering people. And the idea of that came when I was employed as a pizza delivery driver.
I was going to ask if it's autobiographical.
Yeah, just because that was a hateful job. That was a proper hateful job, and people were just like, it was not a good job. I think walking around in the middle of the night in Stoke-on-Trent, delivering pizzas to pissed up people on sink estates, it was not a good job to be doing. So yeah, I think it just sort of came to that. I thought, man, this is the kind of job that could drive somebody nuts. This is the kind of job that could actually drive somebody to murder. And it just went from there, really. And yeah, so, and then a few years later, I think it was about 5 or 6 years later, I sort of actually got around to writing it. Once I got out of that job,
Yeah. So what was what made you actually sit down and go, right, I'm going to write a bloody book now? What actually sort of prompted you to finally sit down and do it? Because a lot of people go, I have ideas all the time. I'm too fucking lazy to do anything though with them. So what actually made you say, right, typewriter or laptop, whatever?
I was at my nan's funeral when I decided to write it, and I think it's just one of them moments, you know, like the cheesy shit, like you're sort of remembering somebody that's died. You're thinking about what they might have done with their life, what they might have wanted to do with their life. And I just kind of, I don't know, it was just one of those thoughts. I thought, well, you know, I've always wanted to write a film, but I can't get round to it. So what could I do? I could write that as a book. And I just thought I don't remember thinking any more about it than, well, I'm gonna write something. I'm gonna try and write a book. It'll probably just be a short story, but I'm just gonna write it. So I think it was that. I think it was just, you know, one of them moments, just being sort of stood at a funeral, thinking about death, thinking about what people do with their lives, and just thinking I'd just give it a go.
No,
it was kind of simple as that, really.
All right, let's just sort of an overall view of your writing style, your what you write about. How would you describe? Someone said to you, "What do you write?" Describe it in like 3 sentences. How would you describe your sort of story style?
I think initially I never described it as horror.
Yeah.
I think initially I described it as sort of dark, humorous fiction. But I guess now, thinking about it with a little bit of hindsight, I would say it's probably horror mixed with sort of black humor, dark humor.
Yeah.
With a satirical edge. Yeah. I'm coming out with this stuff just as I'm talking to you. Let's call it dark satirical horror.
All right. I've been told off for swearing by someone in chat, that Tom Grind ethic guy again. He's told me I'm not allowed to swear, apparently. He sounds like a right wrong one. Right, so that was Mr. Bloody. So how was the reception for that? Well, how long did it take you to get written? And when you did it, was it like catharsis? That's it, I've done a book now. This story's been done. I'm not going to do it any more again. Or was it like, I can't wait to do another one?
I think I was so surprised that I managed to write one book. I was just dead pleased with myself. I was just like, I can't believe I've actually written a book. So I might as well do another one. I'd like to say there's more of a process to things for me than that, but there's not. I give something a go, and then if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I think with writing a book, I was quite surprised that I managed to do it. And I was quite surprised that it was all right. You know, it was a fairly readable book. A few people read it and said they enjoyed it. So do another one. Yeah, I've got enough ideas to last me for a good 20 or 30 years. So I've always got plenty of ideas. So I figure, well, I might as well just get all of them on the page as well. So yeah, it didn't take me long to crack on with the next one.
So you got any tips for people who've got that idea in there and being too lazy to actually get it on the paper? What did you do? Is there any sort of regimen you can do to be disciplined and to get it actually out onto the pages? Any tips for that kind of people?
It's a hard one to answer. I think because for me, I get quite bored quite easily. So if I can occupy my time somehow, I will. I suppose one way I thought about it is I thought about the amount of telly I watched, and the amount of that was telly that I'd seen before. So I figured there's probably like at least a few hours a week where I was watching telly that I'd seen before. So I figured, well, if I just use that time, you know, to do the writing, then that's a few hours a week. That's a start on it. And I think if you enjoy it, I think if you start doing it and you enjoy it and you get on a bit of a roll, then it should start building some momentum of its own, really. Because I think you get to a certain point in a story where you just, for your own sake, you want to finish it. You want to see what happens. You want to make sure that you've gone through that whole thing. It's not easy. I think even if you write something that's, you know, you're not particularly happy with, or that you would sort of not even really want to read yourself or let anyone else read, you know, you've still gone some way. You can still rewrite that. You can do something with that. You can at least tell yourself that you've done it. I think it's quite a gratifying thing to start writing something and complete it and just see that story come out, see it start to finish.
And when you had completed it, was it hard to put it out there to the world? Was it like, oh, people, was you worried at all that people might go, oh, this is a load of rubbish? What did you write this for? Or was you like confident this is, this is going to blow people away? How did you go about sort of you self printed it, didn't you? And you also put it on Kindle and that.
Yeah, I think because of the metal scene that I grew up in. So like you, there is very much that DIY aspect of it where you do record demos and you put them out, or you record CDs and you put them out, and you can just sort of send it to distros, send it to zines, get people to listen to it, trade it with somebody. And I think I just took a similar approach with the book. I didn't figure that I'd be able to get it published. And I don't think I really sort of had a mind on me to do that at the time. I just wanted to have the book printed and just have one on my shelf and give a few to friends and family and see what they thought. So I just went ahead and got it printed up. And that's the approach I took with the next couple of books as well. I think for me, it was a bit like recording a demo. I hadn't done it before. It was new. So it was just a case of, here's a book I've written. Do you want to read it? Rather than really pushing it. I didn't push it particularly hard. I had a bit of faith in it. But I didn't push it particularly hard. I think I just wanted to kind of have it for myself more than anything.
Yeah. You got any idea on the number of sales?
I think Mr. Bloody Sunshine, I got 100 printed, and like I said, I've got one left.
What about, did you get any figures from Amazon for your Kindle sales or anything like that?
Yeah, with Amazon, it's a bit tricky to keep track of because I get the odd sale. I tend to get maybe one every couple of months or something, but then sometimes I'll do like a promotion and it will go up. So I don't know. I think there's been a few hundred. Once you've taken regular sales and the free promotions in there, there's a few hundred copies of each one that have gone out.
All right. That's just reminded me talking about that because I was like, I know I've got two of your books. I remember reading them. I realised I've got them on a Kindle. I've got them on my old Kobo. That's right. I was thinking to myself, where have they put them books? But yeah, they're on my old Kobo. I remember now. Right, I've got a couple of questions. One's asking when your next book is out. We'll go to that at the end. We'll go chronologically for the other books first. My mate Werewolf by Lunchtime wants to know if you've ever read any horror comics or comics in general.
I've got an Army of Darkness versus Reanimator.
Oh, right.
Comic somewhere. I don't know where they are. They're up. I think it might be up in the loft somewhere. So yeah, I've read some horror comics. I think I remember Greg Singer from Beef Conspiracy. He had the Texas Chainsaw Massacre versus Friday the 13th series as well. They were pretty good. So I got one of the cells from that one tattooed. Just there. That's a Friday the 13th comic cell.
Oh, right, cool.
On there. I used to read a lot of comics when I was a teenager.
Right.
So just nothing major, but I had a few bits and bobs. Started to build up a bit of a collection, and then started collecting CDs instead.
You still got the comics, or you flogged them all?
I think I gave most of them to Greg. I've got a few of them. Some of the ones I've got some Alien versus Predator ones. I've got some Black Flag ones. A couple of other random bits and bobs. Yeah.
Cool. Right. There was a scene in Mr. Bloody Sunshine that I remember where he's got a girlfriend, I think from the pizza shop, and they go on it's a protest of some sort. Is it a hunt saboteur or is it against nuclear disarmament, something like that?
It was it was to do with like a coal-fired power station.
Right. And like obviously this guy had all these little thoughts going on in his head, and like how many of those thoughts were like from your own head? Like was you like channeling your own thoughts, or was you imagining someone, some of these people you see on the internet chatting around? Where did you get his mind from? Did you use your own mind to speak for him, or was it just made up complete other people? That question made no sense. Hopefully you can
some of it is me, some of it is just sort of projecting out. So I think whenever anyone asks about characters and who it's based on, or whether it's me or whether it's somebody else, the answer is always it's based on several people, all sort of smushed together. The point I wanted to make with Mr. Bloody Sunshine is that actually the rights and wrongs of the world are kind of there's a lot of grey areas, and even if we think we're doing the right thing, we're on the right side of history, or whatever it might be, actually, we can be just as culpable, just as shitty as the next person along. So even though those people were sort of protesting a really worthy cause and were sort of sticking up for sort of environmental causes, actually, they had infighting going on. They had a lot of sort of petty hatred for each other that really didn't make any kind of sense. So I think with Mr. Bloody Sunshine, I tried to sort of step back a little bit and just almost have him as sort of quite just passive in a way. So in terms of how he interacts with other people, he's quite passive, and a lot of that sort of opinionated anger is just sort of up in his head that he can't quite get out. That sort of frustration that there was. It was almost like sort of trying to just carpet bomb the whole of society just by taking swipes at everything. So he's sort of almost apolitical, just hated on everything, just everything created him, everything wound him up. He just found himself in a place where he couldn't quite click with anyone or anything. None of it really made sense to him. It all just seemed a bit stupid and hypocritical.
So it was like character was like someone would flame everyone on the internet kind of thing. You could imagine him being in chat rooms. So first of all, Stacey Thomas wants to know how did you think of the title of Mr. Bloody Sunshine?
So originally the book was called Slice. And strangely enough, there was actually a film released, I think it was last year, about a murderous pizza delivery driver called Slice. So I was a bit shit, that could have been my book. Obviously a good title because they used it for an actual film, but there you go. I can't really remember. I think it was a reference to the fact that he was so negative. And I think just as I was writing the book, somebody referenced him, said something like, "Oh, aren't you Mr. Bloody Sunshine today?" And I think it just came from that. And I thought, that's actually probably a better title for the book than Slice.
Yeah.
Apparently Slice was the one to go with.
I thought it was a pretty good title. And like you say, it's like kind of ironic, like you call a tall person tiny, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Little John or whatever. There's also there's a lot of talking about madness and mental health. Is that something that's of interest to you? Because the miracle is kind of very much in that vein as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I think every single book I write is about that in one way or another. It's probably, I don't know whether it's something that's important to me. It's interesting to me. I think writing is definitely something that helps me process my thoughts and process my feelings. And I work with people who have got a lot of mental health and emotional well-being difficulties. So it's something that I'm used to dealing with day to day, and it's something that I see a lot of. I don't really know why all of my characters come back to that. It's just something. I just think like the human mind is a very interesting thing. I think the horrors we create for ourselves, I think the situations we create for ourselves, the things we see, the way we see the world is always an interesting thing. I would much rather delve into the mind of somebody who's a massive fuck up than somebody who is, for all intents and purposes, functioning very well. I mean, it may be that I do go into the mind of somebody who's functioning very well at some point. I dare say that I just find that they were just a massive fuck up as well. Yeah, I don't know. I find messed up people quite interesting. There's always a bit more meat there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And so
it's just not fun. If somebody just with a happy, ordinary life, who wants to read that? I don't want to read that.
Yeah. I don't trust people who are happy all the time.
No, I don't.
They annoy me as well. They get on my tits. It's like, this is bloody happy. You and your bloody happiness. Bugger off.
It's like, I mean, maybe it's like a latent resentment.
Yeah. Right, I've got a couple of questions before we move on to talking about the miracle. First, Werewolf again. He says, when you write, do you need perfect silence or mega noise? Do you blast out some beef conspiracy while you're writing, or?
No, I can write anywhere. I'm not fussed. If it's silent, that's fine. I can write with silence. I've got a very busy family, so the house is always busy. So there's always something going on. It doesn't bother me. I'll write in a room full of people or a room with nobody in it. It doesn't really matter.
Do you get into the zone then? Like you get into a zone and a bubble, and you just like nothing else, just the type
Yeah,
out.
yeah. I think I like a little bit of noise and hubbub. I think it probably works well for me.
All right. And another question from Yankee Southerner. You might have already answered. No, you have, what's your favourite horror author, and what was the first horror book you read?
Favorite straight up horror author is probably. I'm probably gonna have to say Richard Lehman, just because I've read all of his books. So I think, but I haven't read them in years. So it was like, it's like late teens, early 20s when I used to read Richard Lehman. But yeah, I just always really liked his books because they just were what they were. They weren't trying to be anything clever or amazing. They're just sort of straight up, sort of nasty horror. So they're always good. But I think probably at the minute, my favourite horror writer is probably Paul Tremblay. He wrote Head Full of Ghosts, Cabin at the End of the World. He's really good. Yeah, I think his stuff's quite funny as well. It's quite clever. So I think if there's somebody that I could probably aspire to be a bit like at the minute, it would be him. He's really good.
What about your first horror book? Do you remember the very first horror book you read?
Like reaching way back, probably like the Goosebumps books. I remember reading them when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Again, they scared me, so I stopped reading them. How old I was probably like 20 at that point or something. But I remember reading The Ghost Next Door. That was a Goosebumps book. I liked that one. And then I think I read a couple of point horror things, that kind of stuff, like The Train or something. Or I remember one called The Train. There was like a hand coming around a train door that was like a skeleton. I don't know. Maybe that one.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about covers then. What about your covers for your books? Who's done those? Is there something you've done yourself?
No, I'm shit at stuff like that. No, so the first two, were by Tom, who's a guitarist in Beef Conspiracy. So Tom Grind Ethic, that's him. He did those. So I just kind of gave him a little bit of an idea, and then he sorted it out for me basically. So Mr. Bloody Sunshine, I basically just sent him a sketch and said, can you do me a cover that's something like this? And then for The Miracle, I think I took a photo of the corner of my shed and said, use this as a background and make something that's a bit like this.
Right.
And he put it together. And then Like Rats was Greg, who is the singer in Beef Conspiracy, so he designed that one for me. So I'm quite fortunate, really, that I've got people that I know who are much more talented at that kind of thing than I would be. I wouldn't have a clue where to start. So,
yeah. Let's move on and talk about The Miracle now. Then, when did Mr. Bloody Sunshine come out? Do you remember when it actually came out? How old is it now?
It came out in 2009, so that was 11 years ago now. Yeah.
Okay. And how long was it after bringing that? I mean, how long did it take you to write it from start to finish? Do you reckon it took you to write Mr. Bloody Sunshine?
I think it was about 18 months. I think. Yeah.
And is that
to get it from a point where I sat down and started, and then actually put it out? It was about 18 months.
And is that the norm for you now? Did it take 18 months to do The Miracle, or was it like, I've got a running start now, and it took you less time? How did that come about?
It takes me longer now.
Right.
So Mr. Bloody Sunshine didn't take as long because I basically just wrote a first draft and then just sort of titivated it a bit. Whereas now I sort of write a first draft and then I sort of completely redo it, write a second draft, write a third draft. So it's just there's a lot more emphasis on rewrites and editing now. So it just takes longer. So I think Mr. Bloody Sunshine was about 18 months. Miracle was about 2 years. Like Rats took me about 2 years. And then the one I'm on at the minute, I'm probably going to be working on it still for another year. It's taken me 3 so far.
Oh, so, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I work full time. I'm a busy boy, so I don't need amounts of time to write. So
you can't afford to do it full time then. Yeah.
No, nowhere near.
All right. So tell people about the miracle then. What is the miracle about? What is this miracle of which you speak?
The miracle was it's about a man who believes that he is pregnant, and he believes that he has been made pregnant by God. So he believes that he's basically the new Mary.
Right.
He is going to have this baby, and it's been given to him by God.
Yeah.
So it's about his gradual undoing. It came about because I'd not long had a baby. So my first son was born. It was around the same time I sort of finished writing Mr. Bloody Sunshine. So sort of these two massive sort of things came into my life at once.
So there's a real baby and a literary baby at the same time.
Yeah. So, and I remember thinking it was hard having a kid and being a parent, and I remember thinking this is really hard. And I worked with a lot of families a lot of single parent families, a lot of parents who had like huge amounts of stuff going on in their life, and I think, man, it must be really hard for somebody who is genuinely struggling to get by in the world, to have a baby and to do it by themselves. That must be incredibly difficult. And then I just thought, well, what if actually that person believed that child was like a gift from the gods to them? And then I thought, well, what if that person was a guy? What if it was a guy who was pregnant? What if it was somebody who was genuinely struggling in life, and it was a guy, and he was going to bring this baby into the world by himself, and he felt that had come from God? It just seemed too stupid not to write it. So I had to do it. I think once I decided how he was going to give birth, I thought, yeah, I've got to write that book.
I can't remember what happened in it now, but I remember there was like so some people believed him and some people didn't believe him, and he ended up getting like a bit of a cult sort of going around, didn't he?
Yeah. So it's how he sort of his belief starts to get used by other people. So how we get drawn into this like a cult, where it's that feeling, isn't it, of having somebody validate something absolutely ludicrous about yourself, and how that becomes quite an intoxicating thing.
Okay, I can't remember how it pans out, that one, to be honest. I'll have to dig that out again and reread it. But if you want to find out how it pans out, go to the blog link below, and there's links there for picking up Adam's books, either on Kindle or physical copies of the books. Right? How did that one? What was the reception like? Did you get any backlash for the for that from anybody?
I don't know if I got backlash, but a few people that read it said they couldn't read it because it was too dark.
No.
It was too much, I think. So there were a few people that said they got a little way into it and had to stop, which for me was like perfect. I was dead happy with that. That was the best feedback I could hope for. So I was very pleased about that. I don't think it was as well received as Mr. Bloody Sunshine, because it was just really horrible. I made a decision to go really horrible with it, and to write something that would be particularly difficult to read.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know if that paid off or what. But again, it was something that I wanted to write. It didn't really bother me whether it sort of landed with people. I just wanted to write it.
Yeah.
It was fun. I enjoyed writing it.
And it's quite a novel sort of subject for a novel. Yeah. I can't imagine there's any. I mean, it was that one where Arnie gives birth as a junior or whatever it was. Was that the one where Arnie's got a baby? It was a little bit different to that, I've got to say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what I was aiming for originally. I originally wrote it as Junior 2, but it sort of just took a bit of a left turn, and everything went horrible.
Yeah. Was there any sort of underlying message you was trying to give out with that story?
Probably not. No. I mean, there might have been at the time. I can't remember. I think I was keen to write on to write on faith. I didn't want to just sort of go in there and write something about religion and just start saying that religion's a load of bollocks or anything like that. I wanted to write something that was genuinely about somebody's faith, about how that can be a destructive thing for people, but also how that can be quite a positive thing for some people, how that can help them deal with something that's going on in their life. So yeah, I think I always liked films, books, music that sort of talked about religion, talked about faith. So it was something that I was keen to do. Yeah, in my mind, I set out, I want to write a book about serial killers, a book about religion, and a book about zombies. That was my sort of 3-book plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got a super chat from Stacey, I think. I don't know if that's a super chat or not. It says $1.99. Either that or she's telling you, saying how much the book's worth. I'm not too sure. She just got a message up. It says $1.99. I don't know if it's a super chat, maybe. If it was, thanks for that. Right, let's move on to. So the next one's a zombie book. Is that not a sellout to do a zombie book? Everyone does zombie books. Come on.
Yeah, they do.
Oh dear, something's gone wrong. He's even up. He's tricky questions. I ask a tricky question and he's disappeared. I get the feeling that his phone may have given out. So I just blather on for a couple of minutes. He might have run out of battery or something. I don't know if he's. Hopefully he's running to find his charger now, and he's not even in the back room. So, but anyway, thanks to everyone for joining us. I will hold on for a bit. Hopefully he's come back. I want to talk to him about obviously his zombie book, and he's got a new ghost story that's in the works as well at the moment. As I say, he was just saying he's got probably another year before he's got that finished up. Yeah. So, anyone got any other questions for in case he does come back? Actually, let's go and look on Facebook, see if he's messaging us there. Let's have a quick look. No, he's not on Facebook. Hopefully he's found his charger and he'll be back in it. Hold on. Oh no, it wasn't. It was his computer. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, yeah. His computer has decided he wants to update and it's switched itself off. Yeah, it wasn't a phone he was on. I remember now. He told me he was on his laptop. So his phone, his computer is booting itself back up. Isn't that annoying? Have I read the Briar Patch from Tales of the Weird and Strange? No, I've got the book. But I'm so terrible at reading books now, Paul. Comics. I can still read comics because they're like small. I've got books that from friends that I've been interviewing. Like, I don't know if you saw my interview I did with Natasha Danzig. I've got 3 of her books that I bought from her to support her, and I've not read any of them yet. I don't know what it is with me and books anymore. I used to read books all the time, but I think it's a stupid thing, but it's kind of like I think it's a psychological thing because my books, I'd read whatever my mum picked me up from the charity shop. She used to go to the charity shop and pick me up books, and I'd read them on the bus on the way to work, lunchtime at work. But I don't know if it's some kind of stupid psychological thing, but when my mum died and she wasn't buying me books anymore, I just couldn't get my head around reading books, and I just stopped reading books for some reason. And yeah, so I've kind of tried starting to read some of the books that I've bought recently. I do intend to get on to read that Tales of the Weird and Strange, and maybe I could do an interview with you sometime, Paul, on here. I was just kind of like trying to do like a feature on writers. Not that I know anything about writing, so I haven't got any kind of superb insight myself or anything. But just if you want to pop in and one day and have just a little chat about your stuff. I know you've got a couple of self-published stuff. Actually, I got one of your books because you had a self-published one, didn't you? That was on a website or something. I went and downloaded it, and I haven't got round to reading it yet. Right, we have the return of the Adam. Oh man,
sorry about that. Yeah, my laptop just decided that it wanted to close down and reboot itself.
Right.
I'm not really sure why, but so I'm on my phone now.
Right. Oh, okay. That's annoying when that happens. We were talking about. I thought I'd hit you with that like killer question about doing a zombie book rather, and you just ran off scared, like, oh no, he's got me. He's found me out.
Yeah, I didn't want to answer uncomfortable questions.
Yeah.
So after I wrote Mr. Bloody Sunshine, I thought then like, oh, I'm going to write a zombie novel next. And I remember thinking at the time, and obviously, this was not a correct thought, but I remember thinking, man, there's not a lot of zombie novels about. That could be a thing. There's a lot of zombie films, but there's not a lot of zombie novels.
Yeah.
So I thought, yeah, I'll go for it. And then I decided I was going to write The Miracle instead. And then I think I remember after I'd written The Miracle thinking, right, it's time to write that zombie novel now. And then I just looked and there were just so many. Even at that point, there were just so many. And by the time I'd finished writing it, there were like too many. So I think I just timed that one wrong. So yeah, I did write a zombie novel. I quite liked writing a zombie novel. I thought I was going to write a few more of them, but I think I might return to it at some point.
Like a series.
Yeah, I'd intended it to be a series.
Right.
But then I decided against it. I might still return to it. I don't know. But yeah, I quite like a zombie novel. I think as long as it's coming from the right angle. I didn't want to go down a sort of Dawn of the Dead kind of, zombie novel. I wanted to write something that was add a bit more about it in terms of the real world. Perhaps something that was a bit more like 28 Days Later. Yeah. So that was the idea anyway.
Yeah, I read the synopsis, so that's just the one I haven't read of yours yet. But the synopsis, and I think there was a review on Amazon. It's all about social commentary, and I think some of the sort of synopsis of the little blurb about it. It was you want to explain it a little bit more, what the bit more depth of what the book's about when it comes to zombies.
So the book was about two fellas who were basically trapped in a fenced-off village. So the army had come and they had put up a fence around this village. Sort of Britain had gone into a bit of a nosedive. There's a lot in it about politics. So the main thrust of it is that Britain had elected a ruling party who put everything to the public vote. So every single thing that went through Parliament went to referendum. And that is what led to the ultimate demise of Great Britain. This was written pre-Brexit, by the way.
Are you seeing it come through now in this post-Brexit sort of current COVID climate? Are you starting to think prophecy?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is that was part of it, and then in this sort of referendum-driven world, they decided that they were going to start to control the underclasses by selling them medical supplements that could improve their lives. And it was those medical supplements, or at least the need to conform to certain societal norms that just either, depending on what you believe, drove people mad or turned them into sort of rage-infected zombies. So that's kind of the thrust of the book, as to whether actually what happened was a result of the social conditions people were placed under, or whether it was actually a drug-induced madness that did it. So they leave their village to try and find out, what happened. Is it safe out there, or is it just an absolute nightmare escape?
All right. Okay. I've got a couple of questions that people are asking. I'll leave them all to the end. But let's talk about your upcoming book, the one you're working on now. Have you got a title for it yet?
At the minute, the working title is called The Worker. So it's going to be a ghost. Well, it is a ghost story. It's not going to be a ghost story. It is a ghost story. It comes from the sort of work I've been doing, I think. So for my whole career, I've worked with people, with families, going into people's homes, talking to them about, what's going on, what they want to change, the difficulties they're having, how they can overcome it, all that sort of thing. And, that's quite a unique position to be in, I think, because you get a real insight into people's lives and what's going on for people. And I think I always wanted to write a ghost story, and it didn't really occur to me that I could combine those two things. So that insight that I get through the work that I do, and also bringing a ghost story to that. But I remember one case that I worked where there was an awful lot going on in this family. But the mum, towards the end, we'd sort of worked through several different angles to try and get around these problems they were having. And she came to the conclusion in the end that actually the problem is that the house was haunted, and that was the problem. And that was what sort of clicked everything together in my mind. And I thought, well, here's a different perspective on a ghost story. We're so used to hearing psychic investigators or priests or whatever it might be, and actually, what if it is just a sort of well-meaning civil servant who happens upon this family where there's something more than meets the eye. Actually, there's a family that are in a type of trouble that he'd not reckoned on. And what would that do to you? What would that do to me if I genuinely found myself in a house where there was ghosts and demonic possession? What would that do to me as a worker? So it's as much about the worker himself and his experiences as it is about the ghosts and what's going on for this family. Yeah.
When you come to create your books, do you have the full idea from start to end in your head, and you just want to flesh it out, or do you start writing and you're like, oh, that might be a good idea later on, or then you put it in, or you don't put it in? How would you sort of say you set your book out?
I never used to do any planning. I just used to sit and just write, and whatever came into my head would go onto the page. I think I still don't do a hell of a lot of planning. I think I kind of got to a point where I thought I should, because I assumed that's what all writers do. And then I read a book by Stephen King called On Writing, which is where he talks about his process and how he goes about it. And he said that he doesn't plan. He writes, and then he goes back and he adds bits in, and he'll plan out certain bits. And I thought, well, that's kind of what I've been doing. So if it was good enough for Stephen King, I figured that was good enough for me. So I don't really plan the book. I have an idea of what I want to say in it. I have an idea of what the themes are. I have an idea of sort of one or two key plot points, but I don't really always know where it's going to end. But what I've started doing now is I'll write about the characters. So I'll almost write an interview with the characters where I ask them questions, and I think about how they would answer it, what their experiences have been, what their past has been, what they've gone through, and what's going to change about them. So that's where I come from now. So for me, it's more about the characters, and I think if I can figure the characters out, then I can write a story that serves them a bit better. I do a little bit of planning, but it's more if I get stuck. I kind of think, right, where does this need to go?
Yeah.
I like to leave plenty of space for myself. I like to give myself a bit of room to add somebody in or take somebody out or change something. Yeah. Or if I know if I'm going for a certain theme. So when I was writing Like Rats, I knew that there was going to be a strong political thread in it. So I just sat down and I wrote sort of freehand for a while, just anything that came into my head about politics. So if you just sit and write, then ideas just sort of start to come out onto the page, and a lot of that you just bin, but one or two things will jump out, and you can use that. Yeah.
Going back to the title of that, Like Rats, what's that referring to? Because they're breeding like rats is kind of like the phrase, isn't it? Is that to do with the zombies are breeding like rats, or?
The phrase pops up several times in the book, so people use it in lots of different ways, like breeding like rats. They're I think it was more because the zombies in it, whatever you want to call them, that comes from the underclass, and I think that's the kind of language people use about what they see as the underclass. These people that they like you said, they breed like rats, they scavenge like rats. There's thousands of them like rats. They desert the ships like rats.
Yeah.
And always this idea that rats are these awful things. They carry disease like rats. It just seemed to come up a lot. So yeah.
I'm sure I remember seeing a politician or some social commenter using that phrase for immigrants and people coming over like rats, asylum seekers, that kind of thing. It was that horrible bitch on Twitter. I can't remember what her name is now, but I'm sure she said something akin to that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go back through the chats now because we're coming up to like 5 minutes to go. Is someone bashing something there? I can hear noises of something being bashed. But I don't know if that's your phone.
It's just my phone. Sorry.
Okay, no worries, mate. I thought you might be tapping the counter and not realise it was picking up or something. Right, so I'm just going to go back through the questions here. Talking about zombies, Werewolf Balance Down wants to know if you like The Walking Dead. Or what do you think of The Walking Dead?
I watched the first 3 seasons and then I got a bit bored.
Okay.
I did like it, but then I think I must have found someone else to watch. But yeah, I do quite like The Walking Dead.
Did you read the comics at all?
No.
They're pretty cool.
Yeah.
Also, I need to ask: fast zombies or slow zombies in your book?
There's both.
Ooh.
There's a bit of both.
I can't stand fast zombies. It's just cheating. Fast zombies is cheating. As if there wasn't enough of them already. They don't want to be blinking Olympic blinking level athletes as well.
I like a fast zombie because I kind of think, at the very least, if we go with the trope that their people return from the dead, you're going to have them in various states of decomposition. And if you've got one that's freshly dead and they're hungry, they're going to get after you fairly quick because they're still fairly intact. But if you've got one that's perhaps a bit more decomposed, then they're going to have to take their time a little bit. I do like a good slow walk, overwhelming sort of wave.
Yeah, a swarm. Yeah,
I do like a good slow zombie, but I also quite like a fast.
I did quite like that logic actually of like fresh zombies being quicker, and that makes sense. Possibly be more intelligent as well, even it's more cunning maybe if they're a bit more fresher. There's a little bit more brain left in the old head.
Exactly.
What about Yankee Sapper wants to know, do you write splatter horror? I mean, you're quite gory, aren't they? There's a fair bit of gore, I think.
Yeah, well, Mr. Bloody Sunshine's probably got a bit of that in there. There's maybe elements in the other 2 books. I don't put, like, for my tastes, I don't put a lot of gore in my books. I think I could push it up a bit more. I like splatter. I do like splatter a lot. I don't think mine are particularly splattery. But I think that just depends on, what you want to call it. Some people would probably read Mr. Bloody Sunshine and say that's gory as hell. It's definitely a splatter book. And there's other people that wouldn't. I think it just depends on where your limits are, really. For me, it's not, but for other people, it might be.
Okay. And another question have you read Pulp?
Horror Pulp? I have not.
Yeah. I don't know if that's a book or a genre. Is that not the old style of like EC Comics, that kind of thing? Is that what he means by that? I'm not too sure. All right. Are you a fan of Edgar Allan Poe?
Yeah, I quite like a bit of Poe. I've got an Edgar Allan Poe book that I dip into every now and then. Yeah, so I do like a bit of Edgar.
What about Lovecraft? Do you like Lovecraft?
I've read some Lovecraft. Yeah, I've read a bit of the Cthulhu stuff. The Shadow over
Innsmouth.
Yeah, that's it. I was going to say Portsmouth. No,
it's not far off it, mate. It's not far off it. I've not been to Portsmouth, but I've been led to believe there's some shambling sort of types there. A bit like Wisbech, in it? Wisbech.
Exactly. Yeah, that's like proper Lovecraft country.
Yeah.
At the start of Like Rats, there's a Lovecraft quote from the Colour of Magic. Is it the Colour of Magic? The Colour of Space.
The Colour of Outer Space. The Colour from Outer Space.
Yeah. So there's a quote out of that. Yeah.
Cool. Come on, I had something else in my head then. I forgot what it was now. Oh, someone's asked, Stacey's asked, do you write by hand or use your computer if you don't plan?
I when I'm planning, I tend to either tap a few notes into my phone. I prefer to write by hand, like into a book when I'm planning, because I think there's something nice there about the mental connection between your head and your hand, and it's a bit more, comes a bit more free flowing. When I'm writing a book, I write it straight into my computer, and then I'll sometimes sort of annotate a manuscript by hand. Yeah.
Do you back it up and keep copies of it so you don't get any computer suddenly shutting down on you when you're doing stuff?
Well, no, I don't do that. It's obvious that I don't do that sort of thing. Computers are always shutting down on me at annoying times. No, I actually lost 30,000 words out of Mr. Bloody Sunshine when I was writing it because I didn't back it up. And I haven't learnt my lesson. I still don't back my work up. So thanks for reminding me I need to do that.
Yeah, you back your work up, mate. You may want to start. You might want to start. Okay, Greg Carter Is that from your band?
Yeah, that's Greg. Yeah. Hello,
Yeah.
Greg.
Is Adam going to write a book about him writing a book?
Yes.
Okay.
Obviously, who's to say I haven't already done that several times? I've made a film out of me writing a book about writing a book, and then somebody's going to make a documentary about that film.
That Stephen King book you was talking about writing. One of my friends was Matilda has read that recently, and she was like, I don't know, she was up in arms about it or something. I can't remember what she was saying, but I think she just read the bit from It where the kids all decide to have an orgy for some reason, and she was like, how the fuck did he? One of my language, if 3-year-olds are listening, how the hell did he think that was a good idea? Right, let's see. Well, any other questions? Someone said Jibberjung, sorry. Do you find the best ideas come when you aren't trying?
To be honest with you, I don't think I'm ever trying. I think I'm not very good at trying. So yeah, let's go with that. Yeah, the best ideas do come just out of nowhere. The trick is, I think you got to write them down quick, or else they're gone again.
Yeah. Okay. A couple of Have you ever eaten brains or any delicacy from Scotland?
I've eaten haggis.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think it has brains in it. It's got various other offal, but I don't think there's any brains in haggis. I don't think.
No, I would probably eat a brain though. Yeah, I'd go for it.
Okay. Yankee 7 asked, have you got a YouTube channel about your writing at all?
No, I haven't. No.
Never thought. Yeah, it's kind of doesn't necessarily lend itself to it. I don't think. I'm not too sure. But Yankee Savra, there's a lot of stuff where he talks about the books that he's read, and he talks about his writing as well. Yeah. So I don't know if that's something to be interested to you. Yeah, but oh, hi Dino. By the way, Dino says hi. Jibberjung says brains taste like pasta.
I like pasta. So there you go. Maybe I'll
give it a try.
Analyze a brain next time I have, instead of pasta.
Yankee Savler says, always back up your work at least 3 different ways.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Good advice. Right, so we can't throw over an hour now. Maybe we'll do another 5 minutes if I can think of anything to ask, because we did lose about 5 minutes when everything went tits up for a while. I can't think what to ask now. So about a year until the new book comes out, yeah?
Yeah, I think there's probably about a year until I'm at a point where I'm happy with it. I'm going to try and get this one published.
Yeah,
I'm going to push this one a little bit more. So I don't know when it's going to reach a point where anyone can read it, but soon, hopefully. I'm working through it steadily.
You described it to me when you told me about it. It's turned into a monster. And I wasn't sure if you meant the ghost was turned into a monster or the book was turned into a monster. Are we talking about it's going to be a real bumper book this time, is it?
It's the longest book I've written. It was 140,000 words, which is about 50,000 words more than the last one I wrote. So yeah, it did just keep going. And the problem is, I thought I'd edit it and I'd take, I thought, I'll take 30,000 words out of that easy, and I just added more into it. So I just keep putting more in. I've got more to edit. It's spiraling a bit. So.
Have you not tried to get any of the other previous books published? Have you gone any way towards like sending them out to publishers?
No. I think I mean that comes down to me. I think I'm a bit. I don't know how to put it. Like, I'm confident in the work, but I don't think I've ever sat back and read it and thought, do you know what? I'm confident enough to send this off. I think like Rats. So the latest one I wrote. I felt confident enough in the actual quality of the writing in that one to get it published, but it's just, the subject matter, no one was picking up zombie novels, so it just seemed a bit like, what's the point? Just put it out myself. And when I sat down with an agent, eventually he just said to me, well, no one's publishing these, and that was the point where I decided not to bother writing a sequel to it. I talked to him about the Ghost book, and he said that's the one. Write that one. So that's when I started writing the Ghost book instead.
All right. Okay, Jibberjangs again. Wants to know what your favourite word is. If you was to put like all your, is there any program you could put all your books into, like a program, and get it to search out the most used word other than the and? What do you think your most used word would be?
Bollocks.
Bollocks. You say that a lot in your stories.
The word. It's just a good word, bollocks. You can just say it in a number of different ways. Yeah, I like the word bollocks.
And it has a few meanings, I suppose, as well.
I'd like to say something cleverer than that.
Yeah.
I'd like to have like some really intelligent answer to that, like some amazing word, but it's not. My favourite word's bollocks.
It's pretty British. It's pretty British as well. Exactly. I don't think Americans say bollocks quite as much as we do.
No, they don't. No, they should.
Right, we do. Apex Comics asked what your favourite comic is, but you're not really a massive comic guy, are you?
Not massively, no. But I think I'm more. I think when I was younger, my favourites was like I liked sort of Venom and Carnage and stuff like that. I liked the Marvel stuff, but the stuff with like the darker tilt to it.
Right. The anti-heroes.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Well, we've done an extra 5 minutes now. I think I've run out of questions. I could probably scrape a few out of the bottom of the barrel, but I think I just let you finish up and whatever you want to say. Basically, give you the podium to get people to buy your books, that kind of thing.
Okay. That's trying to get anyone to buy my books. I don't know if anyone does watch this and they want to buy my book. I'd appreciate it. That would be dead nice. It would be cool. It's just cheers, Gray, for talking to me. It's cool to talk about my books. I appreciate it. It's nice to know there's a few people out there watching in as well. Boys from Beef Conspiracy and whatnot, a few people from work from the sound of it too. So yeah, it's just been dead nice just to sort of sit and talk on a Friday night, and just sort of say a few words about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
If you do want to buy one, please feel free.
Yeah. If someone can only afford to buy one book, which one would you suggest they buy?
Like Rats, because it's probably the best one. I would say it's the best one. It's the easiest one to jump into. It's probably the funniest as well. And also, it's the one that I've got most copies of. So,
yeah.
I've only got one copy left of Mr. Bloody Sunshine. So, if you want that one, move quick.
All right. No plans for a second pressing then?
I ain't got the money for a second pressing. Yeah.
Do you feel that the more you've written, you feel that you're mastering your craft now more? Is that another reason you think the third one's better and the fourth one's going to be even better?
Yeah, I think so. You got to do 10,000 hours something to be good at it. So I think I've done my 10,000 hours now. I look back on the stuff that I wrote 10 years ago compared to the stuff I write now. I think I'm a bit better at it these days. Yeah.
Can I just ask, actually, you did a short story that appeared in an anthology. What was that about? I forgot to ask about that.
That was like a Halloween anthology. So that was a long time ago now. I think it was just about somebody who was annoyed with the term, what was it, spooktacular. That was it. He didn't like the term spooktacular at Halloween because he felt that Halloween was quite dangerous, and so he was on his way to warn the party goers at a Halloween spooktacular that something was coming to get them. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Right. Yeah. That's it. You've already had your closing statement, haven't you? So I don't know what I've going on there. So thanks for everyone for tuning in. Thanks, Adam, for joining me. And maybe you'll come back when the new book's ready, and we can do like another chat about it when it comes out in about a year's time.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah.
And the links down below. You can buy Kindle versions from Amazon. I put the links for that as well, actually, in there. Plus, you've got Twitter. Do you want people to come and add you on Twitter?
Yes.
Yeah, go and add Adam on Twitter, and if you want to buy his stuff, it's what the other link was it? I can't remember what the other link was called now.
Big Cartel.
Big Cartel, that's it.
Yeah.
All right, cheers, mate.
All right, nice one, Gray. Cheers.
Thanks for viewing, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.